Before I tell you what I did, I need you to picture something. Picture the most important day of your life. The day you have spent months planning. The day your parents have been saving for, quietly, patiently, without ever once complaining. Now picture walking into the room where your wedding dinner is about to happen, and finding your mother and father seated at the very last table in the building, next to the kitchen door, next to a service cart with dirty glasses on it, next to a trash can, a foot pedal trash can, 2 feet from where your father would sit to eat his daughter's wedding dinner. And then picture finding out that the woman who did it smiled the whole time. That is where this story begins. My name is Sophia, and this is Calm Drama. Stay with me, because what happened next changed everything. The woman at the center of today's story grew up in a small town. The kind of town where the pharmacist knows your birthday, and the mail carrier waves at you by name. Her father spent 35 years fixing other people's pipes, steel-toed boots, bad knees, a back that gave out somewhere around year 30. But he never missed a day when she was in school. Not one. He would come home in the evenings, scrub the grease from his hands with that orange soap that smells like gasoline and something almost like citrus, and ask her what she had learned that day. Her mother served lunch to 400 children every single school day. She knew every child by name. She knew who had allergies. She knew who came to school without enough food at home. Those children always got a little extra. Always. They were not wealthy. She shared a bedroom wall with the water heater. Her winter coat in 7th grade was a hand-me-down. But the door was always open. Dinner was always hot, and not once, not one single time, did her parents make her feel like she was missing something. She worked her way through college on a scholarship and student loans, became a nurse practitioner, paid off every cent of her debt by 28. She built that life herself, but the foundation, the thing underneath all of it, that was her parents. She thought any decent man would see that and love her more for it. She was wrong. She met him on an ordinary Tuesday. He came into the clinic with his father for a routine appointment, and leaned against the reception desk like someone had posed him there. Tall, dark hair, the kind of jaw that looks like it came from a catalog. He asked her to dinner. She said yes. He was charming in a way she was not used to. He opened doors. He took her to restaurants where the napkins were heavier than her winter coat. He told her, early on, that her parents sounded like good people, that he could not wait to call her father Dad. She believed him. His family was a different world entirely. 3 generations of real estate development. Their name was on a subdivision, a commercial plaza, a bronze plaque at the country club where they had been members for 25 years. His mother, we will call her Vivienne, wore cream silk to their first meeting and pearl earrings the size of dimes. She shook hands, looked her up and down, and said with a smile that was not really a smile, "A community clinic. How interesting." Then she mentioned, conversationally, that her son used to date a doctor's daughter. He squeezed her hand under the table and whispered, "She'll warm up." She never did. But by then she was already in love. And love has a way of making you explain away the things you should be running from. When the engagement happened, the wedding planning began. And almost immediately, things started to blur. Vivienne chose the venue. Not the small church on the street where her parents had been married 30 years ago. The country club. Naturally, Vivienne chose the wedding planner, her friend. Vivienne chose the menu. And when her mother quietly suggested adding her fried chicken recipe as an appetizer, a recipe that had fed their family through every hard year, Vivienne tilted her head and said, sweetly, "That's lovely, Linda, but this is a seated dinner, not a potluck." Her mother laughed it off. She saw the way her mother's hands went tight in her lap. Every time she pushed back, he had the same answer. "Let Mum have this one, babe. After the wedding it's just us, our own rules." She told herself she was being strategic. Lose the small battles, win the war later. The venue did not matter, the menu did not matter. What she did not understand yet was that the small battles were not small. They were rehearsals. Vivienne was not being difficult. She was testing. Every time the ground was given, she took note. Every concession was a measurement of how far she could go. The wedding day was not the war. It was the final exam. She woke up in her childhood bedroom. Sunlight through the curtains her mother had sewn when she was 12 years old. Her dress hung on the closet door, ivory satin tea-length bought with her own savings. Vivienne had suggested an expensive designer gown from a boutique in the city. She had said no. This was the one thing she kept for herself. By 10 in the morning she was at the venue. The room was stunning. White flowers in crystal vases, gold charger plates at every setting, 300 candles, a string ensemble warming up in the garden. An $85,000 event mostly funded by his family. 200 guests were expected, half from his side. Business partners, country club members, the mayor's wife, important people with important names. The other half were hers, her aunt from out of town, 3 nurses from the clinic, her college roommate, old neighbors who drove pickup trucks and wore clothes from regular shops, and had never once heard of a charger plate in their lives. She noticed early that her people were scattered toward the edges, but she told herself it was just numbers. His side had more guests. She was wrong again. After the ceremony, while guests moved to the cocktail hour, she slipped into the reception hall to check the final setup. Habit, she was a nurse. She checked everything twice. She walked to table 1, the head table right in front of the dance floor where both sets of parents were supposed to sit. She picked up the first place card, not her father's name, not her mother's, his family, his family, his family, his family's business partners, 9 people all his. No sign of her parents anywhere. She started checking other tables, table 2, table 3, table 10, table 12. She found them at table 14, the last table in the building, tucked against the far wall, beside the swinging kitchen door. Folding chairs, the backup kind, not the polished ones that matched the rest of the room. A service cart with dirty glasses 2 feet away, a utility light overhead instead of a chandelier, and beside the table, close enough to touch, a trash can with a foot pedal. Her parents' names were on place cards sitting next to a bin. She found the wedding coordinator. She asked who had changed the seating chart. The coordinator did not blink. Vivienne adjusted it this morning. She said the bride had approved it. She had approved nothing. She stood alone in that reception hall, and did what 7 years of emergency nursing had trained her to do. She trudged. Swinging kitchen door, clanging pots, folding chairs. Trash can 2 feet from where her father would sit in the one good suit he owned. The suit he had saved 6 months to buy. And she thought about what would happen if she said nothing. Her father would straighten his tie and say, "It's fine, sweetheart." Her mother would fold her napkin in her lap and pretend she could not hear the dishwashers running behind her head. And Vivienne would know. She would know she could seat them anywhere she liked. The back of the room, the edge of the frame, out of the picture entirely. And no one would say a word. Every Christmas after this, every birthday, every family gathering, Dave and Linda would always be table 14. She went to find him. He was in the groomsmen's suite, adjusting his cufflinks in front of a full-length mirror, silver, monogrammed, a gift from his mother. She told him what had happened. He didn't look up from the mirror. Mum rearranged a few things this morning. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal, she told him. Table 14 was next to the kitchen, next to the rubbish. He sighed. The sigh of someone who finds the person in front of them difficult. "Fonda, we have 200 guests out there. Can we not do this right now?" she asked. "When then? After dinner? After her parents had already sat there for 3 hours?" He turned from the mirror. His face was calm, patient. The face of a man who had spent years practicing how to look reasonable whilst saying unreasonable things. He told her his mother had her reasons. That certain guests at table 1 were important. "More important than my parents?" she asked. He did not say yes. He did not have to. He put his hand on her arm, gentle, rehearsed. "Baby, you're stressed, it's your wedding day. Let's get through dinner and I'll speak to Mum tomorrow." Tomorrow, it was always tomorrow. Tomorrow after the engagement party. Tomorrow after the bridal shower. Tomorrow after the wedding. Tomorrow never came. She looked at his face and searched it for something. Anger, guilt, surprise. Anything that would tell her he had not known about this until right now. There was nothing. No surprise, no outrage, he had known since morning. He had fixed his cufflinks and checked his hair and said nothing. She walked out without another word, but she was not done yet. There was one more door to open. She was walking back through the corridor, intending to try one more time. She was going to stand in front of him and say, "Fix this or I do not walk into that room." The door to the groomsman's suite was not fully closed. 3 or 4 inches, enough. She heard his mother's voice first, low, controlled. The voice Vivian used when she was most dangerous. She heard her say that her father's suit looked old, that her mother's dress looked homemade, that they looked poor. She heard her say that they could not sit at the front table, not with the Hendersons and Porters right there, not with people who mattered. And then she heard him, "You're right, they're fine in the back, it's more appropriate." A pause. And then Vivienne, quieter. "You should have listened to me from the start. She doesn't belong here." She pressed her hand against the wall. The hallway tilted. She heard her own heartbeat, slow, hard, like a door being locked from the inside. Her father. The man who had spent 35 years on his knees, under other people's kitchen sinks. 2 bad knees, 1 good suit. The man who drove 4 hours round trip every weekend to bring her home-cooked food when she was at university, because he thought the dining hall was not enough. A plumber. That is what they called him. That is what the man she was about to marry agreed with. There are sentences you cannot unhear. This was one of them. She stepped back from the door. Her hands were not shaking. Something had gone very still inside her. The way things go still in the emergency room, right before a code is called. When the noise stops and everything becomes absolutely clear. She pushed the door open. Vivian turned first. Her face froze for half a second, then rearranged itself into the smile. The one that looked like warmth but felt like a locked gate. "Fonda, sweetheart, you look stunning. I heard everything." His jaw tightened. "Heard what?" "We were just..." She told him exactly what she had heard: her father's suit, her mother's dress, the word poor, the agreement that her family was fine in the back. More appropriate there. Vivienne stepped forward, hands folded, the chairwoman posture. "Fonda, this is simply a seating arrangement. We were trying to ensure. You called my father a plumber like it was an insult. You called my mother a lunch lady like she should be ashamed of it." He tried the calm voice. The one he used in meetings when things were going sideways. He told her she was emotional, that it was her wedding day, that they should breathe. "I am breathing," she said. "I have never been more clear." Vivian looked at her son. A quick, sharp look. "Handle this." He tried again. "Baby, come on, let's not ruin..." "I'm not ruining anything," she said. "You already did." She turned and walked out. Behind her she heard Vivian hiss something too low to catch. His footsteps did not follow. He did not come after her, and that was the answer she needed. She went to find her parents. Her father was sitting upright, hands flat on his knees, the way he always sat when he was uncomfortable but too proud to show it. His jacket was buttoned, his tie was straight. He had polished his shoes that morning. She could tell because they had that particular shine that comes from drugstore polish on a kitchen rag. Her mother sat beside him, smoothing a crease in her dress. The dress she had altered herself. Taken in the waist, added lace to lease, replaced the zipper. 3 weekends of work. Hunched over the sewing machine in the spare room, pins between her lips. Behind them the kitchen door swung open with a bang. A blast of heat and the clatter of stacking plates. Her mother flinched. Her father did not move. "Hey sweetheart," he said when he saw her. "You look beautiful." "Dad, I'm so sorry about..." "Don't." He held up one hand. "I can sit anywhere, baby girl. This is your day." He looked at her for a long moment. Something moved behind his eyes. Not anger, not sadness, something quieter, understanding maybe. Like he already knew what she had not said yet. She thought about the $12,000 sitting in the catering company's account. Her parents had saved it over 15 years. A little each month from a plumber's pension and a cafeteria worker's salary. It had covered the catering deposit, every plate, every glass of wine, every dessert that 200 guests were about to eat. Without that $12,000, there was no dinner tonight. And Vivienne had put the people who paid for the food next to the place where the rubbish goes out. Stay here, she said. Both of you, I'll be right back. Her mother reached for her hand. Fonda, don't make trouble on our account. I'm not making trouble, Mum, she said. I'm finishing it. The reception doors opened. 200 guests filed in to the sound of a string ensemble. She watched from the edge of the room as they found their seats. His family settled into the front tables, with the ease of people who had always sat at the front. Her people shuffled toward the back, checking place cards, pulling out chairs that did not quite match. The MC stepped up to the microphone and welcomed both families. He gestured to table 1. His family stood, his mother beamed applause, then the MC moved on. Not a single word about the Marshalls, not one mention. And then she watched something that she will never forget, for as long as she lives. Vivian walked past table 14 on the way to the bar. She stopped beside her mother's chair. She looked at the loose thread on her mother's sleeve, the lace that had come undone from 3 weekends of careful sewing, and she turned to the woman beside her and said, just loud enough to carry, bless her heart. Someone should have bought her a proper dress. I suppose you have to know your place. She sipped her champagne. Her mother's hands went still. Her eyes dropped to the table. Her father reached underneath the tablecloth and took her mother's hand. He did not say anything. He just held it. She had watched patients in crisis. She had held children in hospital corridors. She had seen things in the emergency room that most people could not imagine. But watching her father, the strongest man she had ever known, sit there and absorb that woman's contempt while holding her mother's hand under a folding table next to a rubbish bin, that was the worst thing she had ever seen. Because for the first time in her life she saw him ashamed, not of himself, of the situation, of being placed somewhere he did not deserve and not being able to fix it. She was done, completely and irreversibly done. She walked to the stage and took the microphone from the MC's hand. He let go without resistance. 200 faces turned toward her, crystal glasses, white linens, gold place cards. Vivienne at table 1, champagne in hand, him beside her, jaw locked, her parents behind her. Table 14, the last table. She adjusted the microphone. Thank you all for being here today. Her voice came through the speakers clear and level. No tremor, no tears. 7 years in emergencies teaches you how to stay steady when everything is falling apart. I know you came here to celebrate a wedding, and I owe you the truth about what is happening in this room. The last murmur died. 200 people went still. Most of you know me as his fiancée. But before I was that, and after tonight, I am Dave and Linda Marshall's daughter. She pointed toward the back of the room. My parents are sitting at table 14. I'd like everyone to look at table 14 for a moment. 200 heads turned. She watched the reactions move through the room like a weather change. Confusion first, then recognition, then the slow tightening of faces as people understood what they were looking at. His most important business partner put down his fork. His wife pressed her hand to her mouth. At table 1, Vivian's smile hardened into something ceramic. Her knuckles went white on the stem of her champagne glass. 12 hours ago, she continued, my parents were seated here at table 1, where the families of the bride and groom are supposed to sit. That was the seating chart I approved. This morning that changed. Someone came into this room and replaced every place card at the head table. My parents were removed and reassigned to the last seat in the house, next to the kitchen, next to the service entrance, next to the rubbish. She paused. That person was Vivienne. Every head at table 1 turned toward her. When I confronted my fiancé, he told me not to make a scene. And when I heard him speak to his mother privately, he said these exact words. My wife's family are fine in the back. The Hendersons and Porters are more important. His most important business partner pushed his chair back from the table. Not dramatically, just enough to create distance. He stood up. Fonda, you're twisting. Sit down. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. You had your chance to stand up for my family. You chose not to. He stood for 3 more seconds. Then his mother pulled his sleeve, and he sank back into his chair. The room was so quiet, she could hear the kitchen door creak on its hinge. Let me tell you about the people at table 14, she said. My father fixed pipes for 35 years. He has 2 bad knees and 1 good suit. The one he is wearing right now. He saved 6 months to buy it. A woman near the middle of the room pressed a napkin to her eyes. My mother serves lunch to 400 children every school day. She knows every single child by name. She knows who has allergies, and who comes to school without enough food at home. Those children always get a little extra. She turned back to face the front tables. My parents contributed $12,000 to this wedding. They saved it over 15 years from a plumber's pension and a cafeteria salary. That money covered the catering deposit. Every plate you are eating tonight. My parents paid for it. She let the silence sit over the room. People looked at their plates, at their wine glasses, at the food in front of them. And you put them next to the rubbish bin. She looked directly at Vivienne. I came here today to start a marriage, a partnership, a life built on mutual respect. Her voice did not crack. She would not allow it, not here, not in front of her. But I cannot sign my name to a marriage where my family is treated as an embarrassment. I will not build a life with a man who sits and while his mother calls my father poor. She reached up and unpinned her veil, folded it carefully once, twice, 3 times, set it on the edge of the stage. The way her mother had always taught her to fold things, with care, even when you are letting them go. To the guests who came for my family, thank you. We are going home. She placed the microphone gently back on the stand, no slam, no drop. The way you set down a tool when the job is finished. She stepped off the stage and walked to the back of the room. 60 feet of polished hardwood, her heels clicking with every step. This time nobody talked over it. Her father stood when she reached him. Her mother was crying. Quiet tears, the kind she always tried to hide. She hugged them both right there, between the folding chairs and the kitchen door. Her best friend appeared with her coat and bag. She had already called a car. They walked out, the 4 of them, past the dessert station, past the string quartet which had stopped playing, past 200 silent faces. Behind her she heard Vivienne's voice, brittle and sharp. She has lost her mind. And his voice calling her name. She did not wait. The door closed behind her and the last sound she heard was her own breathing, steady, clear, free. That night she sat at the kitchen table in her childhood home. The same table she had done homework on since 3rd grade, formica top, chrome legs. A chip in the corner from when she dropped a cast iron pan in high school. Her mother made coffee. Her father sat across from her and said nothing, which was his way of saying everything. Later that night she received the news she had not expected. The marriage license had never been signed. The ceremony was beautiful and emotional and real, but legally it was symbolic. The signing had been planned for after dinner. The document was still sitting in the coordinator's leather folder, unsigned, unwitnessed, unfiled. She had walked away without a single legal tie, no annulment, no divorce, nothing. She had simply walked out of a room. The consequences for his family came quietly. No headlines, no dramatic confrontations, just the slow, steady erosion of a reputation. His most important business partner's father the following Monday, and pulled out of a major development project. He said that if that was how the family treated the people closest to them, he needed to think carefully about how they would treat a business partner when things got difficult. The project stalled for 8 months. Vivienne had chaired the same charity gala for 6 years. 3 weeks after the wedding, the board met behind closed doors. She was not removed. That is not how these things work in certain social circles. She was invited to step back, to focus on family. The gala went ahead in September, without her name on the program. She had orchestrated none of this. She never made a single call, never posted anything publicly, never told anyone outside her closest circle what had happened in that hallway. She did not have to. 200 people had watched Vivienne seat a plumber and a cafeteria worker next to the rubbish bin. And 200 people went home and talked about it. Consequences do not always arrive with a microphone. Sometimes they arrive with a phone call on a Monday morning. 2 weeks after the wedding, she found out she was pregnant. She sat on the bathroom floor of her parents' and cried, not from joy or devastation, From the sudden, overwhelming weight of how much more complicated her life had just become. She was going to be a mother. And the father was the man she had walked away from in front of 200 people. She told him by letter, 3 sentences, professional, final, she was keeping the baby. If he wanted parental rights, all communication would go through her solicitor. His responses came in waves, "Come home, we can fix this. Then, my family will fight for full custody. You have no idea what you are up against." Then, at midnight, "You are making the biggest mistake of your life." 3 emails. 3 different versions of the same man, pleading, threatening, predicting ruin, all from the same person who could not stand up to his mother over a seating chart. Her father answered the phone when Vivienne called the house. She heard Vivienne's voice through the receiver, perfectly measured, reminding him that this child was part of their family, that they had the best solicitors in the county. Her father looked at her across the kitchen. She nodded. "Mrs. Vivienne," he said. "My daughter has a lawyer, talk to her, not to me." He hung up, set the phone down gently, went back to his coffee. A daughter came into the world on a Tuesday morning, 7 pounds, brown eyes. A laugh that sounded like a hiccup played through a tiny speaker. She was given her mother's surname, her grandparents' name, the name of a plumber and a cafeteria worker who had never, not once, made their daughter feel like she was not enough. Her father held her first. His rough hands cradled that baby like she was made of something fragile and irreplaceable. He stood at the window with the morning light on his face, and did not say a word for a full minute. Just breathed. Her mother took 47 photographs, she counted them later. A letter arrived 2 weeks after the birth, no return address, heavy stationery. The handwriting familiar from old holiday cards. It was from his father, Richard. He wrote that he owed her an apology, not for what his wife and son had done, for what he had not done. He had been in the room, he had seen the seating chart change. He had heard the conversation in the corridor, and he had said nothing. He wrote that he did not expect forgiveness. He was not asking for access to his granddaughter, but if there ever came a day when she would allow it, he would be grateful. She read it twice, folded it, placed it in the nightstand drawer beside her daughter's hospital bracelet. She did not reply, not that day, not that month. She was done making decisions based on hope. This time she would let time answer, not wishful thinking. I have been sitting with this story for a long time now, and the thing that stays with me, the thing I cannot stop thinking about, is the moment she unpinned her veil. She folded it carefully, the way her mother had always taught her to fold things, with care, even when you are letting them go. That detail tells you everything about who raised her, and everything about who she is. She did not leave that wedding angry, she left it clear. There is a difference. Anger is loud and hot and blinding. Clarity is quiet, still, certain. And she was certain. Her parents were not table 14 people. They were never table 14 people. They were the people who built the foundation everything else stood on. They were the ones who fed 400 children and fixed other people's pipes and drove through snowstorms and saved $12,000 over 15 years. Without ever once asking for recognition. They deserved table 1. They deserved the front of every room they ever walked into. And the moment she understood that no one in that building was going to give it to them, she gave it to them herself. She stood up in her wedding dress, in front of 200 people, and she told the truth. Not out of revenge, not out of anger. If you are listening to this right now and you know what it feels like to watch someone you love be made small, if you have ever sat at a table 14 and smiled through it because you did not want to make trouble, I want you to hear this. You are allowed to stand up. You do not need 200 witnesses. You do not need a microphone. You do not need everything to go perfectly. You just need to know, somewhere past the doubt and the guilt and the voice that says, "Do not make trouble," that the people you love deserve better. And if the person you chose agrees when someone calls your family less than, if they sit in heavy silence while someone puts your parents next to the rubbish bin, that person did not choose you. They chose comfort, they chose convenience, they chose the easier version of love, the kind that does not require courage. That is not love, that is a seating chart. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think of someone, or recognize something in yourself, please share it. Leave a comment. Tell me what you would have done. Would you have walked out? Would you have taken that microphone? Or would you have sat down at table 14 and said nothing? There is no wrong answer. Every person's breaking point is different. And I am not here to judge yours. I am just here to make sure you know that breaking points exist for a reason. This is Calm Drama with Sophia, and I will see you in the next story.